Tom Swarbrick on LBC.
10 to 6 the time, Friday evening. Tom Swarbrick here on LBC means really one thing. There is only one person who could ever interrupt him in full flight, and as you can hear, the press room of the White House is filling up because we are standing by for a statement from the President of the United States. So apologies in advance to Simon Marks and his American Week.
Tom, for President Trump, today has proved to be his date with destiny. Shortly after 10 in the morning here, the US Supreme Court delivered a body blow to the president, his entire government, and the tariffs that have served as the key pillar of his trade, foreign and national security policies. The Supreme Court has overturned virtually all of them.
This is one of the most significant cases that the justices have decided in recent years. Here, the Supreme Court ruling that President Trump's use these emergency tariffs that he has implemented are illegal.
So today was going to be the fate of whether or not Trump's IEEPA tariffs, which about 60 to 75% of the tariff policy right now in the United States is based off of, and the Supreme Court making this decision, a redhead across the Bloomberg terminal, Trump's global tariffs are struck down.
The underlying policy, the one the president had championed so much and insisted on imposing as quickly as possible, has been struck down by the Supreme Court. And what will irk him even more is that two of his appointees, Neil Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett, were part of making that happen.
The reporting there of ABC, Bloomberg and CBS. For exporters the world over, including the UK, the prospect now of some relief, given the devastating impact on their businesses of the president's decision to erect trading barriers not seen by the United States for generations. For importers, a race now to try and get their money refunded. As much as $150 billion collected by the US Treasury over the last year. It could take them months and more legal action to get that money back. For American consumers who have paid 90% of the cost of the tariffs in higher prices, the prospect of perhaps some relief at the cash registers. And for President Trump, ridicule, given the proclamation that he made in the White House Rose Garden last April.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day, waiting for a long time.
And who can forget the laughter and applause from members of his inner circle that accompanied his Eurovision-style reveal that afternoon of what he falsely claimed were reciprocal tariffs that he was applying to exporters all over the world.
If you look at Switzerland, 61% to 31%. Indonesia, Malaysia, Cambodia. Oh, look at Cambodia, 97%. We're going to bring it down to 49. They made a fortune with the United States of America. United Kingdom, 10%, and we'll go 10%. So we'll do the same thing.
The Prime Minister thought that was a result and then managed to negotiate a partial trade agreement steered through the White House by his then ambassador, Lord Mandelson. How things have changed. Months later, the former ambassador's career is over, and now so is the central underpinning of the Trump administration's approach to government. Remember, Trump has used tariffs in ways that his predecessors would have used sanctions to punish and cajole countries with whom the US has a beef. And it was all based on an entirely unconstitutional claim that the country was facing a national security trading emergency that he said allowed him to do an end run around Congress.
This is a good thing for the rule of law and for the fact that Congress is actually the ones who's supposed to be making this policy.
Philip Luck heads the economics program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington and is a former deputy chief economist at the State Department.
If the Supreme Court had not addressed this issue, if they had sort of said the president can take this type of action whenever he wants under sort of these pretty flimsy pretenses, that sort of, takes away the idea that Congress has the purse strings on setting international trade policy. So that's a really good thing, I think, there.
As to what happens next, Trump's top lieutenants, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, have indicated they had prepared a plan B to implement in short order some kind of across-the-board 10% tariff on all American imports. But what the legals of that look like are unclear. It will, though, be hard for the president to abandon entirely his protectionist instincts. There are reports that he has been raging today within the White House over the Supreme Court's decision. He warned for weeks it would bring chaos to his administration. But that anger may also be fueled by the fact that the clock is ticking. His State of the Union address is next Tuesday, and this is not the kind of development that the president wanted serving as the wind in his sails as he prepares for his biggest night of the year on American television. Could the weekend see another distraction to change the storyline?
As you know, Iran is a hot spot right now, and they're meeting, and they have a good relationship with the representatives of Iran, and, you know, good talks are being had.
That was the president earlier this week talking about Iran and threatening the Islamic regime.
They must make a deal, or if that doesn't happen, I maybe can understand. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, but bad things will happen if it doesn't.
It is perfectly possible the president's 10 to 15-day grace period for those Iranian talks is no longer operative, given his need to change the storyline. Of course, this was also the week when Americans were noticing the kind of dramatic action in the UK over the Jeffrey Epstein scandal that has been notably absent here in the United States. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's arrest yesterday broke just as America's breakfast TV shows were coming on air.
A stunning development in Great Britain. Former Prince Andrew arrested in connection with his ties to Jeffrey Epstein. It follows weeks of new revelations about their friendship.
Thames Valley police say they're investigating reports that the former prince sent trade reports to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein in 2010.
British police took former Prince Andrew into custody early this morning, local time, in Norfolk. That is in the east of England. It's where he's been living since he was forced out of his royal home in Windsor.
NBC and Scripps News there. For several hours, they went wall to wall with coverage of the former Duke of York's travails, without in large measure any of the networks asking how it is possible that a scion of the wealthiest and most powerful family in Britain is being held to account for his alleged misconduct, whereas here the American cousins of the Thames Valley police appear to have no shortage of time on their hands. For President Trump, yesterday was business as usual until Pete Ducey of the Fox News channel threw him this bouncer aboard Air Force One.
Do you think people in this country at some point, associates of Jeffrey Epstein, will wind up in handcuffs too?
Now that is a yes or no question. Does he think anyone important might find themselves helping American police with their inquiries? It did not elicit a yes or no response. Instead, we got this classic of the Trump genre.
Well, you know, I'm the expert in a way because I've been totally exonerated. That's very nice. So I can actually speak about it very nicely. I think it's a shame. I think it's very sad. I think it's so bad for the royal family. It's a very, very sad. To me, it's a very sad thing. When I see that, it's a very sad thing to see it and to see what's going on with his brother, who's obviously coming to our country very soon, and he's a fantastic man, the king. So I think it's a very sad thing. It's really interesting because nobody used to speak about Epstein when he was alive, but now they speak. But I'm the one that can talk about it because I've been totally exonerated. I did nothing. In fact, the opposite. He was against me. He was fighting me in the election, which I just found out through the last 3 million pages of documents.
Ah, yes, the last 3 million pages of documents, which the president's critics very much hope will not be the last 3 million pages of documents to emerge from his Department of Justice. Remember, Attorney General Pam Bondi is still holding on to those documents, claiming they can't be released without compromising the privacy of Epstein's victims or besmirching the sanctity of what she claims are ongoing investigations into the sex trafficking financiers' crimes. But Democrats and some dissident Republicans smell a rat.
How can you show up to a convicted pedophile's island or ranch or home where you know that young girls are being abused and then not have an investigation? It is one of the biggest cover-ups and scandals in our country's history.
That is Congressman Ro Khanna, a Democrat from California who co-authored the law requiring the Trump administration to release everything that it's got, and telling PBS that he can only admire the way other countries are handling the Epstein scandal, but not his own.
There's been no accountability in the United States. In Britain, the British monarchy is in trouble. The British government may fall. The Norwegian princess may not become queen. Other countries are having total investigations of anyone who even shared emails with Epstein. And in our nation, we have not had accountability.
And the country is not going to get accountability, at least until the Democrats find a way of retaking control of the levers of power here. Because President Trump has co-opted the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the entire law enforcement division of government here. He's incinerated its traditional independence. And nobody expects Attorney General Pam Bondi or anyone else that he's appointed to unearth anything that causes him or members of his inner circle any legal difficulty. So, critics of the Trump White House can only watch events in the UK agog, a country with no written constitution teaching lessons in accountability to an America that is discovering its written constitution can easily be derailed. Although, Tom, the Supreme Court ruling here this morning on tariffs has certainly put a huge crimp in President Trump's plans.
From Washington, D.C., Simon Marks, American Week.